Most people run from haunted houses. My guest today bought one and he never looked back. Welcome back to the Common Historian, where history meets the supernatural. I'm Jeremy, and tonight I'm joined by Daniel Klaes, paranormal investigator, author, filmmaker, and owner of what may be considered the most haunted house in New York State. We're talking about the Hinsdale House, a location with over 200 years of documented history and decades of unexplained activities. So grab your favorite beverage, dim the lights, and prepare to journey into the world where history refuses to be buried. Welcome, Daniel. How are you?
Good. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Oh, I'm doing well. I'm glad that you came on tonight. I'm excited to kind of dig in. To get started, I know I think you've been in the paranormal field since 1983, I believe.
Yeah, on or around there, probably my whole life. It's
Whole
not what
life.
happened when I was a kid, but yeah,
Actually, where did it start for you? That's kind of the question that I wanted to ask first.
for me, it started off as a child growing up in a house where strange things happened. My parents always sloughed things off, like things moving or creaky footsteps, stuff like that, and always thought there was something weird going on in my house that my dad always said people were pulling pranks on us. There was one time we went to church on a Sunday, we came home and there was like crayon drawings on the ceiling. There was crayons sitting in the middle of the living room. My parents had gone camping up in Canada, and I stayed home at my best friend's house who lived 2 doors down, and we went over to my house to get my GI Joe guys, and when we opened the front door, we heard it sounded like a little boy and a little girl singing "Ring Around the Rosie" coming from upstairs, knowing that nobody was there. I was pretty freaked out, and my friend ran up the stairs, and my sister's one of her stuffed animals was sitting in the middle of the floor, and it just tipped over. A lot of things, like, really sit with me that happened at that location. Nothing,
Yeah.
like, crazy, nothing malevolent, nothing if you wanna call demonic or whatever, but it was still things that happened that you couldn't explain, and I ended up leaving that house, and then my parents later down the road asked me if I wanted to purchase it years later after I was done with college, and thought it would be cool to know because I know the neighbors, have my kids go to the same school that I went to and know the neighborhood, and so I ended up buying that from them, and then my wife started experiencing things, my son started experiencing things, and everything that happened to me when I was a kid just all started coming back, and that was the start of it for me, doing the research on the location and trying to figure out what was going on there, and ended up finding out that there were 2 children that died there of cystic fibrosis from some microfiche slides at the library.
Oh,
I had gone to my friend had invited me to go to Lilydale with them, which is you guys should check out when you come to Wildwood. It's a psychic community here in Western New York, and
oh,
it's really cool. And I said, I didn't know if I really believed in psychics at that point, but I said, "Well, set me up with a good one." And I went there and I sat down, and the psychic told me, "You have 2 children spirits that are at your house that are attached to something that they love." And I just said, "Wow," she just answered all my questions before I even paid her. Wow, this is great. But she also said a bunch of stuff that turned me into a believer, and I scoured that place. I didn't know what the heck could possibly be an attachment to the energies that were there. And I ended up one day just going up in the attic, those little attics that have a little square in the ceiling that nobody ever goes into, like a
oh,
crawl space.
yeah, I have one in my house.
Yeah, so there was one in my house, and I had never gone up there, so I opened that up, got the ladder out, and I went in, and I put the flashlight around, and there were some boards up against the wall, otherwise it was just clean. When I tiptoed over, and when I turned the boards around, there were paintings of a little boy and a little girl playing with a dog, and I was like, "Whoa, this is crazy."
Wow.
And then I had told them that to go to the light, that we know that they're there. Chalk that up as like the first Scooby-Doo episode of my life because after I figured that out, I was like hooked on the history, researching and trying to understand what happens when you die. And I started going on a lot of ghost tours and just kind of sucking it in and learning from people, learning techniques, learning about equipment, and ended up starting my own team later down the road.
Oh, very nice. So your experience as a child, how did that prepare you kind of for locations like the Hinsdale? That
Oh, I'm not gonna lie, you're going on your first paranormal investigation, and I remember even after all that stuff happened to me when I was a kid, going to locations and experiencing things, an EVP or a K2 meter or something like that, but nothing ever prepares you for seeing something with your own eyes. And I remember the first time I ever saw anything, and it was like a shadow figure at a theater we were at, and it glided right in front of me, and I had been doing this for years now, and I'm a big bad paranormal investigator, out to debunk what's going on at this theater, and here I am sitting there in this thing that we documented on camera. We have pictures of it, and this thing glides in front of me, and I couldn't breathe. I was freaked the frig out and got up and ran down those stairs out into the street. When it passed and it glided right into the projection room. And I say how freaked out I was. As it happens, it doesn't happen a lot, but when it does happen, you get a little bit more immune to it every time. But it wasn't like it was coming after me or something. It just glided in front of me and into the projection room. But it didn't make any sense because we had those laser grids. So
Yeah,
we had and the light wasn't penetrating through it. So the scientific mind in me was saying that this has gotta have some type of mass to it because it's not reflecting the laser light. So it was weird. It was to this day, it still kinda gives me chills on my arm just thinking about it.
yeah,
But yeah.
yeah. It could be interesting when I go because I lived in a haunted house for 2 years. Full body apparitions. I saw at least three, four of them, shadow figures,
Oh, so
knocking,
you're
babies
ready.
crying. Yeah, I want to see if I experience something at Wildwood and see if it still doesn't bother because it got routine after a little while. It was like, oh, that's just the ghost upstairs. After a while, and this was over 20 years ago. Back then, you didn't really talk about it too much. We all knew stuff was happening, but you didn't really talk about it because people would think you're strange.
Yeah. Now there's more of us, so it's a
Yeah.
little more accepted.
So I believe you co-founded the Greater Western New York Paranormal Society.
Yeah.
What gap were you trying to fill in the field at that time?
It wasn't a gap that we were trying to fill, it was just me and some friends that were all interested in kinda the same thing, and we were going off and documenting our findings and putting little shows together for YouTube. And this is back when YouTube wasn't really huge, but
Yeah,
we do have millions of views on our stuff, and it was pretty cool to that was like learning how to piece together filming and learning how to do that type of stuff as well. It looks primitive now compared to what I do today, but it was a start, and I
yeah,
think what we did and what we put together was pretty damn good for a bunch of rookies that never edited anything before in our lives, and it was fun. So we were going all over the place and trying to put answers to stories and debunk things and learn about things, and it was the learning the history, being in old towns that you would never be in because you're going to a place that's supposedly haunted and talking to the locals about it. It's you don't think about that kind of stuff when you're traveling or driving around, you go through a little town, never stop. But
yeah,
these towns we were stopping in and we were meeting people and learning about their town and their history and what had possibly happened there. So I don't know, it's just kind of cool to me just to learn and listen, hear the stories of people and the history. And I still love doing that to this day, no matter where I get called to. It's just cool to be in a new place and hear new stories and talk to people.
yeah. And that's why I do my podcast a lot. I like to hear the stories, the history on different locations, and different experiences like investigators have experienced because sometimes they're completely different experiences at the same location.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, yeah. 100%.
so the Hinsdale House came up for sale, I think, in 2015.
Yeah.
What made you make an offer on it and pursuing the purchase of it?
Yeah, so we were going there. My co-founder of the group booked the location for us to film our show and kinda check it out. I had never been there before, didn't know anything about it. He booked it. He didn't want me to do any recon on it. He said, "I got this one. I'll brief you guys when we get there." It was creepy, man. It was the middle of winter, December. Now this house sits in the middle of on a hill with no neighbors in sight. Like, your cell phone cuts off. Not anymore,
Yeah.
but back in the day when we were going there, there was no cell phone service, no Wi-Fi, no nothing, and it just reminds me of that. I always that commercial where the chainsaws are hanging from the garage and there's a running car and the people are like, "Oh, let's go hide in the garage with the chainsaws hanging
Yeah.
down instead of the car that's running." That's kinda what that creepy kinda feel I got of this place going there. And the thing that happened, he sat us down, walked in, and there was heat in one room because of a space heater. The kitchen was freezing. It was the middle of winter. There was flies buzzing around in the house. Again, I didn't know anything about it, and he had us sit down and watch the episode of A Haunting. It's called The Dark Forest, based on the history of the house and the stories that have happened there, and I remember watching that, and I'm like, "We're not in that house, the one that had the failed exorcism," and I'm laughing, and he's, "Yeah, cool." I'm like, "No, not cool." You kinda wanna mentally prepare yourself for going into a house that had a failed exorcism. So it took a little bit. I had to step outside and kinda ground myself and kinda mentally prepare myself to investigate the location that night, but the thing that stood out about the house was that every piece of equipment we had, it was being manipulated one way or another, and that never happened. We would go to locations and sit there for hours and be excited if we got one EVP or the K2 meter would go off. Here's all of our equipment. It's like something's here is trying to tell us something. Something's here is trying to communicate with us. And I got infatuated with the location a little bit, started going there a couple more times, but it was in really rough shape. It was not any place I think anybody would just wanna buy to live in at this point. It's been
Yeah.
abandoned since 1986, and nobody's lived there since. And I don't know, we were basically there saying goodbye. They had ripped all the ductwork out of it, all the electrical, and it was just a shell, and it was at a tear down date. And I was there, they granted us a okay to go there one more time, and I was in the kitchen, and I had started doing some research on the location and found out about this couple that lived there in the 1980s called their name was Flo and Joe Misnick. And I was in the kitchen and not one to claim to get touched or anything like that when I'm doing this stuff. But we just had me, the house manager, Tim Shaw, and my co-founder, Cameron, and they were talking about the exorcism, structural exorcism, and nothing was we weren't getting anything. And I mentioned their names, Flo and Joe, and then I had a K2 meter in my hand, and it went all the way up to 500 milligauss. It I could feel the static on my arm. I had goosebumps up my arm, and I continued to have what I thought was a conversation with her. It's all on my YouTube page. And I asked her if she would hold my hand as we went up the stairs, and it stayed lit in my hand all the way up the stairs into the master bedroom. And for me, that was kinda like a personal experience. It was like, there's more to this place, and if this gets torn down, there's a chance that we're not gonna get the stories or hear the truths of what happened here, because there's a lot of folklore associated with this place.
Yeah.
So, I had gone down and I'd called to see if I could buy it, and they said, "You wanna buy it without the house because it's getting torn down?" I'm like, "No, I'd like to keep it as is," and he's, "If you're serious, you come down to Cuba, New York," and, I sat down and kinda told them what I wanted. They would have to hold the mortgage for me. I would have to come up with this big giant chunk of change, which I didn't know how I was gonna do because I just bought a new house within the past
Yeah.
month, and this would take some definite convincing of my wife to buy it. And I remember going home and talking to her about it and telling her that the haunted house is for sale, the one that I have the experiences at, and she goes, "How much?" And I said, "Basically gonna wipe out our bank account. We're gonna have nothing." And she goes, "What's wrong with it?" And I said, "It's got black mold in the kitchen. It's got 500,000 honeybees in the wall. It needs a new roof." I basically needed everything. New siding, new
Yeah.
roof, it was a big project.
Yeah.
And she felt my passion for it and allowed me to sign the mortgage and the deed and all that stuff. And that from that point on, we just started fixing it up a little bit by little bit. Friends would come out. We'd have days where people could come out to the house and bring supplies and paint and caulk, and we ended up getting the roof done for $5,000, which was the cheapest quote was like 20,000 and something because of
Mm.
donated stuff and people coming to help. So I mean,
Yeah.
it was it's a work of love, and it's a testament to the paranormal community. You always hear some negative stuff about drama and this and that, but with this place, I think it really draws people together. And it still does to this day. Who would have thought you'd have weddings there or you'd have,
Okay.
stuff like that. It's like I went and got my license to marry people because people wanted to get married at the house. So, I mean,
Yeah.
it's crazy, and it's been a work of love ever since. Just doing tours, having people come in, reinvesting, saving up for a project, trying to get the project done. Sometimes you get knocked off your pedestal and have to do something else because something broke or a porch is
Yeah.
gonna fall down or there's always something, but it's been a work.
I think I saw that you recently added some fire pits outside. I think I saw that recently.
Oh, we just added some new picnic benches and some
The
benches
picnic
for
benches,
around the
that's what it
yeah,
was.
yeah, just so people have places to sit when they're outside, and they actually turn into tables, so they're kinda cool, so you can bend them over and they'll turn into a picnic bench too. Kinda neat.
Oh, nice. So, about how long did it take for you to get it so that you could have investigators and everything come in?
One of the first investigators that we had come in knowing they had to sign a waiver, knowing that there were bees there and stuff like that, was Nick Groff and Katrina from Paranormal Lockdown.
Okay.
Alright. They had gotten in contact with me after I purchased it, and I wanted to film their new show there. I didn't know who was coming. I didn't know any of that stuff, and I remember his cousin Justin, who was on their team, reaching out to me, and he knew more about the place than I did. And I was like, "Wow, these people actually know what they're talking about." And again, still didn't know who it was from. And then I remember getting the contract in the mail, and it was from Groff Entertainment, and I was like, "Whoa, that's one of the big guys in the paranormal coming here."
Yeah,
I was excited just to be able to get it out there and let people know that it's there, because the only way this place was gonna be sustainable is not to cater to the local Buffalo, Western New York, southern tier of Western New York people. We had to go national. We needed to
yeah,
go worldwide, and we needed to have people that were interested in what we're doing from all over the world know about this place. So that was a big first step. And then taking money from that and being able to get the bees taken out safely, which was huge. We had them transported out of there. We didn't have them killed because they were honeybees, and there was 500,000 of them. But again, they could swarm and sting people, so you don't want to have that
yeah,
or in the house and stuff. So everything had to be done one step at a time, and then just kept fixing things up. We fixed things the wrong way because we had donated materials that didn't really work until you saved up to actually get it done the right way. And then
yeah,
you patch things up and just slowly but surely got things done. So we're still working on stuff. We still have
yeah.
things we want to get done.
So, as a history-minded researcher, can you kind of walk me through how you verified the property's past and going back before the Dandies?
Yeah, it was actually easier to verify before the Dandy family than it was the after, because it was a land lease after 1974. So
Oh,
it was difficult, but yeah, no, I had some researchers that worked for some newspapers, and a researcher at St. Bonaventure University. My initial findings were incorrect. I had put a book out and had done some research as far as the history went up to 1853, dating back from the deeds and what we had available. And there was actually a part where it was recorded incorrectly, and that was figured out by I think her name was Selena. She worked at a newspaper in Pittsburgh and brought it to my attention, and I was like, "Oh, thank you so much." And that opened up a whole nother line of information up to 1853. Two brothers that lived there that initially built the house, and just really cool to be able to research it back that far.
yeah, that really is.
We were
Um,
able to look at some old maps, and there are some maps that have it plotted out a lot differently, where the roads go and stuff like that, but it's really neat.
yeah. Oh, yeah. And I think was it the Everett brothers that built
Yes.
the house? Now, as you mentioned, was a lot of kind of misconceptions about the history. So, how did you separate that from what was real? Because I know that there was quite a few that I read when I was researching a little bit that there was like some errors in the history.
Yeah, and it was tough. It was difficult at the beginning because at the beginning, Cassidy, I know that wrote the Hinsdale Follies. She's like a really good friend of mine now. But it took a while to get there, because it
Yeah,
was like at first it was I'm just this evil guy that came in and took over the house, and trying to ruin the history and not know the truth. And it was farthest from the truth of what I wanted. And it took a while for her. Finally, she called me up one day because I had so many mutual friends of hers, and she said, "You want to get a beer?" I'm like, "Yeah, let's go." We went and had a beer, and she talked, and she goes, "I didn't think I was going to like you, but I actually do." And I said, "And I appreciate all the hard work and all your research." And she's an amazing researcher. And I appreciated the fact that some of the things that we had listed that were folklore, that we weren't a guaranteed story that we couldn't prove. So I guess the biggest thing for me was disseminating the difference between what's real and what's folklore, and the people that are doing my tours at the house, making sure that we're giving out the correct information, that this isn't verified, this is a story, but this is actually real. We have newspaper clippings to prove this. I don't want to pin the Everett brothers as murderers, because there's a
yeah,
story of brothers that lived there. As far as I can tell, they were good citizens, and it is what it is. So it's like I want to make sure that we're paying them homage, and everything that we find there, that we're trying to do the right thing.
yeah,
I think being the bigger person and just accepting when you're doing something like this, a lot of people try to control the narrative of the location. And I say it's an open book. Like you said earlier, you could go one day, another person go a different day, and have completely different experiences. And that's
yeah,
what you experience and what they experience. And you can't take that away from the location. So it's
no,
just letting people kind of do their thing. And see what they come up with and try and piece it together.
Yeah. Do you have a log there that they can put different experiences? I know
Yeah, we've been,
look at
um,
Hinsdale.
yeah, we have a log that we've been doing since I've owned the house. Actually, before I owned the house, the people that were running it before me had one, and I was able to get those as well.
Oh,
So it's
nice.
cool to be able we're putting that information together, and I don't know if you ever noticed, but we do go through it all, and we kinda graph everything and times, things that have happened in certain spots in the house, and we're piecing it all together, and we're gonna put it together in a book for people so they can utilize that information when they're there because knowledge is power. So if something's happening at the same time in the same area of the house, maybe they're gonna perform an experiment there, to try to see if it happens again while they're there. So it's pretty interesting just to see. But there's a lot of things that happen that nobody's experienced before either, so it's kinda cool.
Yeah, and I have seen some of those, I think on Facebook, I think I've seen some of the graphs where you've done all the where
Yeah.
most things are happening, what's happening in those certain areas,
Yeah, it's
which
kinda
I
like a
thought was
sort
kinda
of a
cool.
thing of what's to come, when we get this all put together. It's just timing and being able to actually put it down in paper and have that data available for everybody. It's hard because you want everybody to have the correct data.
Yeah. So talk kind of focusing in on the dandies, based on everything that you've researched and people you've spoken with, what do you believe actually happened to them there?
I've gone to talk to Clara. I've been to Florence, Oregon, and interviewed her myself and just got to hear the stories from her mouth. And something definitely happened to them there. They were having things happen to them all the time. She documented it in her book. It's kinda cool the way she wrote her book about the house and dates, times, things that happened to the kids, what the kids said happened, things that she witnessed herself happening in the house, poltergeist activity, bricks flying, statues flying, woman in red outside, the hag, the ghosts that they were experiencing, the noises that were coming from the hill. A lot of the stuff people are experiencing to this day, the same thing. It kinda collaborates
Oh,
what she said, especially the music, the Jesuit chanting coming from the forest, the woman in white around the pond. We've captured pictures in daylight of this happening. It's creepy, and then I've also had stories of, other residents that lived in the house that knew nothing of the Dandies or their stories and told me stories about energies and spirits that they saw at the pond. It's pretty interesting just to be able to hear it, and obviously, what family would just make up a story and involve priests and bring in a psychic and bring in, Ed and Lorraine Warren, and, this is before the movie The Exorcist even came out. Didn't think seem like the type of people that wanted attention, and they were getting all
yeah.
this attention and didn't want it. They had to have somebody standing guard out in front of the house because so many people, once it hit the newspapers, wanted to come up there
Mm,
and see the ghost house, and they weren't able to even try to live in peace.
yeah. Yeah. It would seem like it wouldn't be something they would make up, especially back that in that time and era.
The thing too, the kids, like Laura, she was getting scratches and she was getting things happening to her. You can't her husband, Phil, had an ashtray thrown levitated and thrown at him in the, kitchen.
Mm,
The things would open, a brick from the chimney got thrown, there was a statue of the Virgin Mary that got tipped over when the kids were playing with the Ouija board. Just a lot of weird things that were unexplainable, and then just to see the supernatural things on the outside of the house and on the inside of the house, it just got to the point where they couldn't be helped anymore. The priest said that he did all he could do even after the cleansing. This is it. This is and this priest, if they found a priest back then that was into what was going on, this was probably the coolest priest because he was into the occult. He was into different religions and understanding people and their thought processes. And this is in the 1970s. So it's
yeah. Yeah.
pretty interesting.
It was Father, is it Trabolds, maybe?
Yeah, Father
Yeah.
Alphonsus Trabold is his name, yeah.
Yeah, Travolta's. So now I guess that his involvement's been described in a lot of different ways. From your research, what actually happened in the house in 1974 when he went in?
So, in my research, they called it an exorcism of the house, more I call it more like a cleansing, a
Yeah.
structural cleansing, but just I have, there was supposed to be some videotapes of what actually happened that we've never been able to uncover, but we do have a transcript of what happened. The priest came that day, it was April 1974. The family all knelt in a circle in the living room. The priest was in front of them. The psychic was there over to the right, and there was a film crew there from New York City that was documenting this. And He started doing what he did, blessing the house, and they said that the whole house shook. The film crew claimed that the microphone that they had on the outside of the house picked up screaming. It took 20 seconds, and then it was cleared, and it didn't work. It was stayed calm for a little bit, but it didn't work. And then his advice to them when it started ramping up again was to leave. There's nothing else he could do to try to help
Yeah.
them.
Yeah. Without going probably further in the church, he probably couldn't do it. There wasn't nothing else available to him.
This time, from what I understand, this had to get approved from the Vatican. What
Oh,
he
did
did,
it? Okay.
yeah. So that's the ending line, unless they're going to send the Pope in. You know, I mean, that's
Yeah.
I think that a lot of my feelings, and I don't know if I'm right or wrong, but I feel like the property, the land, you have to be compassionate to other belief systems because you're dealing with Native Americans, you're dealing with things that maybe weren't Christian at the time, and you have to be able to recognize all of that, not just one religion. So we've been throughout the years that I've owned it, we brought in all different types of lay people, belief systems, just to bring positiveness and hopefully closure to the property, trying to help
Yeah.
if we can.
Yeah. You've had hundreds of investigation teams come through since 2015. What's one experience that either you or one of your guests that still kind of gives you pause that they've experienced? That-
I have a couple of videos up on my YouTube that were sent to me from a team that was there. Bobby Merritt and her all-female ghost hunting team, the Warriors of the Paranormal. This is like in 2015, 2016. It was pretty early, but they would come there quite often because of the experiences that they had there. And they had it for a Saturday night, and I remember talking to her the next day. I said, "Oh, how did everything go?" It was kind of dead. We didn't really get anything. And I'm like, "Oh, that can happen. It's not like you just snap your fingers and paranormal is going to happen."
Yeah.
And then of course, she had static cameras running, so she had just told me on personal what she had witnessed from her ears and her eyes. And then when she went back to review her camera footage that evening, she had actually went to go to sleep on the couch and put a recorder or camera on her while she was sleeping. And she's called me freaking out. She goes, "You got to see this. You got to see this." I go, "So I guess it was a good night. You just didn't know it because you were sleeping." And she goes, "Yeah, yeah." And she had a blanket on and she was kind of just curled up on the couch. And it looks like an arm goes underneath the blanket and it just levitates up and then falls down. I'm like, "Whoa,
Mm.
that's at least you can totally make out the hand." And then there's the wall of the couch, and you got your knees up against it, and you're kind of just curled up in a ball type of thing, right? And she's got the blanket on. A couple minutes into the video, it looks like a head pops up out of the middle of the couch, and it was weird. It looked more to me, it kind of looked like a groundhog. I don't know, but something popped up. There was definitely not an animal there, and it looked like it turned its head. Then the sheet just went back down. And then a couple more minutes into the video, you just see this blackness in front of the camera. It was light, you could see her, then you couldn't see her, and then it turned around, and then the camera just shut off, and all the energy was sucked out of the camera.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's quite intense. I've
Yeah, now I've experienced it, I brought my friend that was a skeptic there, and again, it was quiet, it was a quiet night, we had ordered a pizza. She had never experienced anything paranormal, and I it was an off night, there was nobody booked, and we were just chilling and shooting the shit and in the living kitchen, and then we thought we'd try to get a little shut-eye, and I felt something brush the back of my neck when I was on that same couch. The only light that was on in the house was the little night light on the wall, and she's asleep on the other couch already, and, I felt something. I'm like, "What the heck is that? Better not be a spider," and I turned around, and I saw this black shadow just right in front of me, going right in front of the nightlight, blocking it out, and it went over to where the window was, and it turned around and went back, and I'm kicking over at Kelsey. I'm like, "Hey," I go, turn around." And she turned over and she jumped out of her couch into my couch, and she goes, "Do you see that?" And I'm like, "Yeah." So she's seeing what I'm seeing, and then it continued to go back and forth, a couple times, and it just dissipated right into the wall, and, it was to say for granted, it was a little bit hard to sleep after that.
yeah, I imagine.
I did end up dozing off, and then I woke up, and she had freaking left me there by myself. She goes, "I had to get home to my kids." I go, "What about me? I woulda left." It's freaky. Even as an owner and I have access to go there anytime I want, I like being there with somebody.
Yeah.
I will go there alone. I'm not scared or anything, but it's just you like to collaborate with people, and that
Yeah.
having her there was good because we were able to both see that with our own eyes. We have cameras running too now, so we capture stuff all the time. on these cameras.
Now now the paranormal lockdown with Nick Groff
Yeah,
episode, that was one of the highest viewed of the series, I believe.
was
Um,
the highest, yeah.
or the highest. And then he came back. What happened during that investigation that brought him made him want to come back?
I didn't know this, and of course, I'm not at this point, I was a little starstruck with him. I didn't wanna overstep my bounds. It was a little weird. It seemed like after he left, the house was a little bit lighter. The negative energy that would normally come out wasn't coming out for everything, and we were getting a whole lot of communication from other energies. And then one day I was there doing a tour, and I had a spirit box going to my geoport, and all of a sudden we were getting these swear words coming through, and it just kept saying, "Where's Nick? Where's Nick?" I'm like, "Whoa, this is kind of freaky." And I started videotaped it, and I sent it to him. I go, It's asking for you, Nick." I go, "I'm 100% sure it's asking for you. What other Nick would they be talking about at this point?" And then he called me up right away, and he goes, "You're never going to believe what I just did. The night that I, the night that I was having that tour is the night that he had his house cleansed. Had whatever was follow he thought something followed him home from Hinsdale to his home, and he had to have his house cleansed because, what was there." He opens himself up when he does these investigations, and he does expect things like that to possibly happen to him. He's been drawn to this location. He's been helping me ever since. We've become best friends, and we filmed his new show there as well, and the more that we've learned, we've been able to dive in and try to figure things out even more.
Yeah,
So we've done Deathwalker, two episodes there of Deathwalker as well, so he's helped a lot. He really
that's
has as
great.
far as the research and being able to he's even come and done a tour, a surprise pop-up tour, and sold out in 10 minutes and donated all the money to the location when we needed some stuff to get windows, and he's done some really nice stuff for the place.
No, that's really great.
Yeah.
Now, the land itself holds a lot of residual energy, and I know that I think you've talked about it in the past. I had read something. What led you to believe that there's more residual in on the land instead of the house?
There's a lot of folklore stories. Again, the 2 brothers that were murdering people and burying their bodies in the property, and just the things that were happening on the outside of the house, the voices, the feelings that you'd get, the pictures that we were capturing made me feel like something is happening out here. You don't have anything happening on the inside of the house. You go outside, you get things happening that you can't explain. So part of Deathwalker was we were looking into the story of the 2 brothers and looking on the property. We were able to bring in ground penetrating radar and start searching the property to see if there actually were any bodies on the property.
Yeah.
I remember him coming up to me, and I was in the kitchen. He said, "I need you to be on camera." I go, "Okay." And I got some stuff to show you and tell you about. And I was freaked out. I'm like, he found bodies or burial. They call them burial shafts. We didn't dig up any bodies, but the guy that was doing the ground penetrating radar thinks he found 4 in the back corner of the pond. More
Wow.
set up so like a family plot, like, found a broken headstone and the 2 children and 2 adult bodies in boxes. That's what was the readings he was getting back coming from it. So, I
Yeah.
mean, that was very interesting. We had forensic divers dive the pond because of that as well, and we were able to pull up the broken headstone in the pond. So, I guess if I was a body buried there and my headstone was cracked off and dumped in a pond, I'd be pissed.
Oh, I would be too.
I don't know, I just feel when you're going down the right path, or trying to do things in the right way, you just keep uncovering puzzle pieces, and then there's 10 more once you find something out. Now, we don't know names, we don't know this could have been pre-1853 people that lived there.
Yeah.
I interviewed a family that lived there before the Dandies that claimed that they saw a man and a woman and a child levitating over the pond with no
Oh,
legs. Perhaps that was them. I don't know.
yeah.
Who knows? But there's like all these little pieces, all these little what do you call like carrots, and then you gotta pull the carrots out and see if they collaborate with what you're actually investigating.
Yeah.
It's cool because not everybody has the chance to do what we do because you have the location and you taking research from different people and different teams and trying to piece it all together and see if it
Yeah.
has anything to do with the location.
Yeah, that makes sense. Now, I think you've staged the house to kind of be a 1970s period,
Yeah.
dressing. What was it, or what made you decide to kind of do it that way?
The stories of the location, obviously, the biggest stories were that of the Dandy family in the
Yeah.
1970s and 1974, and most of the house was already still staged that way, as far as, like,
Okay.
wood paneling on the walls and all that kind of stuff. So I just kind of rolled with that and kept it to that era.
Yeah.
It feels cool. Like when you go in, it's like you could kind of go into a museum in a way, like seeing the old
Stepping
house with
back
the
in
old
time.
stove. Yeah, I think it may help. I don't know if it does, but if you're a spirit and that's the time frame that you were from, maybe it's cool. Maybe it helps out with things. I don't know.
Yeah. So, what do you want serious researchers to understand about the property that they can't get from a TV episode or a one night investigation?
Not that I need them to understand it, but it's more like a quest for their help. I'm not there 24/7.
Yeah.
And having different perspectives, maybe somebody coming in and trying something that's new that nobody's ever tried before as far as a technique or a piece of equipment could uncover something that wouldn't have normally have been uncovered if we hadn't been there or they hadn't been there. So it's more of a collaborative effort to try to come up with answers for the location. Some people come are more amateurish and just want to come and experience something happening that they've never been able. But a lot of the serious teams come and know most of the history and try to build off of that, which is kind of cool.
Yeah. So, the house has been through a lot in the last 170 plus years. What's your long-term vision for the house?
I like to keep it going. If there's any energies that were there, and I've always said this, that don't want to be there to help them move on if they can. It's not all about having a carnival of energies in the afterlife. If I want to help any energies that don't want to be there, and I want to have as close to the truth of the stories of the people that want to have their stories told from the past.
Yeah.
And as far as the house goes, I think the house was just kind of put on land that was already haunted
Yeah.
and being able to understand that and whoever owns it after me, maybe they'll continue with it, maybe they won't. But I would like the stories, and it's pretty famous now, so I'd like the stories to always be told and keep that little vibe alive with it. And if not for nothing, if they energies weren't there anymore, and you'd be able to tell the old stories of what happened there and keep it alive. We've come a long way with it. So hate for it to
Yeah.
all just disappear.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. For someone listening who's never been to a location like the Hinsdale House, what should they expect when they walk through the door?
It's difficult to say depending on how open they are. A lot of the times I just tell people to sit, soak it in, let the energies that are there become comfortable with them. And then I say just act like a person. A lot of the times it's weird. I'll be having that conversation like you and I are having right now. I'm not engaging any paranormal or energies that are in the house. And you have a recorder going, and there they are answering my questions that I'm asking you. It's like they want to be involved with the conversation. So I think
Yeah.
a lot of it's just being normal, just acting normal and treating what's ever there just like a friend and hopefully getting on their good side so you get to talk with them or get some type of evidence coming out of it. Not so much to be scared and just come with a light heart and try to have fun doing it.
Yeah. Now, if my last question, if someone wants to take a tour or book an overnight investigation, how can they do that? And what kind of like, what's the pricing, etc., for that?
Yeah, so we do tours that are $40. It can be as in depth as you want to do it. We run them during the day and in the evening. And you can also stay at the house. We have public, overnights where we can if you don't have a team and you wanna spend more time there, we have a guide that will stay with you and go over how the equipment works and do some experimenting. You can do your own thing, or you can hang out with kinda form a group for the night. So there's all levels from moderate up of experiences that you can try to have there, and you would just go to hauntedhinsdalehouse.com or my website, danielklaes.com, and there's a link on there, and you can just book your tour right from the website. You pick the day and time that you wanna come and go from there, and then we meet you there, we check in on you, and do the tour.
I thank you for coming on tonight and sharing some stories and information on the Hinsdale. And so, like you said, if you want to experience the Hinsdale House yourself, you can book a tour, plan an overnight investigation, or just explore the history. You can do that at the hauntedhinsdalehouse.com. The link I'll put in the description below as well. And if this episode, if you enjoyed this episode tonight, hit the subscribe button, drop a comment, and tell me what you think is really going on in the house. And just remember, history books close, but some stories refuse to end. Keep exploring the shadows, and I'll see you next time.